Legend of Zelda has, as of this upload day, been with us for 37 years, and throughout that time we have received 18 additional games that have been placed before and after the publication of the over 11 years old official timeline. With the 20th game out on Friday, May 12th, will the Zelda timeline end with Tears of the Kingdom? This is a possibility that we brought up in June 2022 and Zeltic expanded deeply upon prior to the February 2023 Nintendo Direct. By the way, we're working on a collab together, but before then, leave a like on this video, subscribe and press notification bell to not miss it, and help us unlock our big Zelda Switch OLED giveaway before the end on May 12th. Jokes aside, we need to make one thing clear. The Legend of Zelda franchise will definitely not end on May 12th. Quite contrary, as it has never been stronger. Breath of the Wild has surpassed all sales expectations and shown that a franchise that never sold 10+ million copies of any of their 18 past titles on a single system will sell over 30 million on the Switch long before the next system or even the next game, Tears of the Kingdom, is out. But what Breath of the Wild also represented was a step away from the gameplay formula of all prior 3D Zelda games and to an extent also 2D games. And we better get used to it, as Tears of the Kingdom promises more of the same in its official description, creating a sandbox experience of your own paths and direction that these types of open world games have never seen before. A game that pulls off its greatest hits enhanced for a potential last showdown with Ganondorf and Ganon, along with a certain curse established a little over 11 years ago. But by who? The mice, naturally, which was written in Kyoto by Zelda director Hidemaru Fujibayashi, who was also the writer of Skyward Sword. A true Zelda veteran, starting his adventure with the series as a director and writer of the top-down games of the early 2000s. This man advanced from the Game Boy and the DS to become the Zelda team's way to the open-air future. First granting the franchise a worthy beginning to its from then on official timeline, followed by the latest entry in the same storyline a little over 5 years later. Now he has spent another 6 years creating the sequel to said title to complete his trilogy of the Master Sword, Technology and Malice, or Sky, Surface and finally on the ground, not counting dungeons in Skyward Sword or enclosed puzzle boxes in Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom appears to be Fujibayashi's magnum opus, which producer Eiji Aonuma has supported throughout the entire process. This is why we have not seen our Zelda director publicly at any Nintendo presentation or event since winning Game of the Year at the Game Awards 2017. It was after this night of celebration and victory that Fujibayashi returned to what he had been granted by producer Eiji Aonuma, a sequel with Ganondorf in it, and it goes without saying, he intends to make the most out of him in both the story and gameplay departments, all to give the series a potential ending that it deserves before starting with blank pages. Some may not know it, but the first revival of the bereft of intelligence Ganon, as Hyrule Historia states, not counting the game over screen of Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link, happened in the Link Double Adventure or 2001's Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, a game that was developed by Capcom, not Nintendo. The first Zelda game Fujibayashi both directed and wrote the story of, as he didn't start at Nintendo despite being born in Kyoto. No, he first made his way to Osaka with what was supposed to be 3 games, one of power, wisdom, and the final of courage, which didn't materialize. From then on, with also the Minish Cap and 4 swords, he gradually earned his spot in the Zelda team in Kyoto. Interestingly, series creator Shigeru Miyamoto's departure as producer after the release of Twilight Princess coincided with Hidemaru Fujibayashi's arrival, first as a writer in the Wind Waker DS sequel Phantom Hourglass, but then instead of taking part in Spirit Tracks, being promoted to direct Skyward Sword, a role he was granted for 3D Zelda games from the new series producer Eiji Aonuma, the director of some of the most iconic 3D games from Majora's Mask through the Wind Waker to finally Twilight Princess. And in many ways they were following each other, as around the same time as Mr. Aonuma released Majora, Mr. Fujibayashi as Capcom director showed Ganon's return and ritual in the Oracle of Seasons and Ages, and explained how Ganon from A Link to the Past was so different in NES The Legend of Zelda. Then he also gave the origin story of Link's hat, at least until Skyward Sword. Both of these are early examples of Fujibayashi's ability of adding meaning and new lore to Zelda, but also challenging its established conventions. In the case of the Oracle games, placing the entire adventure in 2 lands beyond Hyrule, and with the first linked game concept in the series. After becoming Zelda director at Nintendo, Fujibayashi has been granted everything, including the Triforce, the creation of a new goddess, Hylia, and even the source of his hatred, but not Ganondorf. The creation of Shigeru Miyamoto, and writers Toru Osawa and Kensuke Tanabe for 1998's Ocarina of Time. Yes, this man right here has been waiting for this moment for over 20 years, since writing the 7th and 8th game in this series, to finish the lines and direction for the intelligent and cunning Ganondorf that he has never been able to write until the 20th game in the series. With it, he could give the current storyline the ending it deserves before the Zelda team can start anew with a future Link, Zelda, a new villain in the franchise's 40s. The signs are clearly written on the wall. A post-apocalyptic kingdom of Hyrule with its capital in complete ruins and covered in malice. The all-green tunic replaced by blue in its box art and collector's edition twice. The Master Sword showing weakness against forces of malice, to a degree that in Breath of the Wild it only became a requirement to see the true ending. Well, that, and to allow it in Tears of the Kingdom to be cut in half by malice as Zelda fell and a malnutritioned Ganondorf pulled the demise of rising up from a fissure to invade the surface personally, commanding his legions of evil to finish what was started 100 years ago with the Great Calamity, forcing a return to the sky for the first hero, and with it the spirit of the hero started a never-ending quest to eventually, in this game, take on the green inspired by ancient Greco-Roman, or if you prefer, Hylian traditions, all aimed to restore the Master Sword for the final showdown in Hyrule Castle, on the same surface where Hylia and then the first hero defeated Demise. If that doesn't scream endgame to you, then I don't know what is. Breath of the Wild Link and Zelda having one clear goal in Tears of the Kingdom, to save Hyrule from Ganondorf's vengeance and stop the tragedies from ever repeating. That includes in the original Japanese voice acting Zelda stating, "Link, このままではあなたでも勝てない." Which points to the quest literally at hand. You cannot challenge the master of the castle until you have built strength and repaired and transformed the Master Sword. Since what is this all about? Challenging the Miser's curse that Fujibayashi masterfully delivered in 2011. And the potential return of Hylia, the creator of Phi, and the Goddess Sword, whose hero and mechanical spirit turned into the Master Sword. But the true Master Sword still needed her blessing, which hints something towards this game, along with combinations and reflections which are key to this game, which Greek Ancient Searcher has made abundantly clear to me. This game is all about mirrors, where everything goes back to the origin point, with Demise and Ganondorf, Hylia and Zelda, and potentially Link, and well, Link mirroring each other. And what could this point to? Beginning and end. And what was the beginning? Underground, which Demise originated from, surface, which Hylia ruled and defended, and the sky, where the Triforce was hidden from Demise and her hero pulled her sword. All of this is referenced in the prologue cutscene and opening section of Skyloft of Skyward Sword. And throughout that game, the order of hatred, blood, and spirit is established. Power, wisdom, and courage. That was the beginning. The question is how it will end. In truth, there are two options. It could just be a regular end of the timeline in a downwards, historic fashion, or it could end up as Celtic suggested, in an endless loop, turning things full circle, much like the concentric circles we covered in our past video on symbols found in this game in collaboration with Greek Ancient Searcher, a wheel similar to the logo of Tears of the Kingdom. Two dragons eating each other's tail at the beginning and end, the dual Ouroboros symbol that is seen in both the Japanese and English logo, unlike the Master Sword, which is only present in the international logo. And more interestingly to all of us, the Master Sword was also missing in the Japanese logo of Breath of the Wild, which had no symbols or icons attached. Instead, both of the Japanese logos of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have the original non-English Japanese title and script of The Legend of Zelda. Just like on the Famicom Disk System on February 21st, 1986, up to Link's Awakening in 1993. The beginning, and now the end with Breath of the Wild, Link's Awakening once again, and Tears of the Kingdom of the same timeline. Something is about to be unleashed from the building behind me on May 12th. Director Fujibayashi gave us what we wanted, a sequel of wisdom to the premise of Skyward Sword, the establishment of the Curse of Power, and then a sequel of courage to continue what Breath of the Wild started. After this trilogy of power, wisdom, and courage, it is our turn to let them carve a new path for the next decades, beginning with a game that is truly Zelda unknown for all of us, just like the first Zelda was to everyone who bought it for the Famicom Disk System in Japan 37 years ago. And that right there is where we might have reached after all these years, where the beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning. The Japanese logo going back to the beginning of the franchise in 2017 should thus not be ignored, and so shouldn't every piece of footage we've seen so far, as it has all been pointing to the same thing, the return of the Trinity, not only with its current incarnations, but also the Master Sword, which has been through it all and seems to be reaching its end, possibly breaking for good after the final deed is done. But what do you think? Is this how the timeline ends and a new beginning unfolds in, say, 2029? Or will the timeline stay with us forever and the Zelda team will instead just fill in the massive gap between Breath of the Wild and the 18 games preceding it? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell to not miss any of our upcoming videos, including our big collab with Zeltic and far more Zelda videos. Or simply watch it right here in the end card if it isn't already up, while I thank our patreon.com/Comerolm patrons, and in particular our royal producer Charles Shesh. You rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.